I was sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me when it all started. The seating chart for my mother-in-law Loretta's 70th birthday party stared back at me, rows of names neatly typed out, little boxes I'd been tweaking for weeks. I'd spent hours on this thing, making sure her bridge club friends didn't sit too close to her nosy cousins, double-checking who needed the vegetarian option. My coffee was cold by now, but I didn't care. This party was a big deal, Loretta's milestone, her moment to shine, and I'd poured myself into it. Not just my time, either. My money. Every cent for the venue, the food, the flowers, it came from my account. I didn't mind. It felt good to help, to be the guy who made things happen. That's who I was, right? The dependable one. The one who got stuff done. The phone rang, cutting through the quiet hum of the house. I glanced at it, my wife, Talia. She was probably calling about some last-minute detail, like whether Loretta wanted lilies or roses. I picked it up, leaning back in my chair. "Hey, babe," I said, my voice easy, expecting her usual chatter about party plans. But there was a pause on the other end, the kind that makes your stomach tighten before you even know why. "Hey," she said finally, her tone clipped, like she was rushing to get something over with. "Quick thing. Mom wants to remove your name from the invites." For a second, I didn't move. My hand stayed on the mouse, hovering over the seating chart. The words didn't sink in right away, they just floated there, like a bad joke I hadn't caught the punchline to. "What?" I said, laughing a little, because it had to be a mistake. I'd misheard her. Talia sighed, and I could picture her standing in her mom's kitchen, twisting a strand of her dark hair around her finger like she always did when she was nervous. "It's just optics, babe," she said, softer now, like she was trying to cushion it. "Mom's got this vision for the party, you know? She wants it to look a certain way. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal." I set the phone down on the table, switching it to speaker so I could stare at the screen again. My name was right there, top row, next to Talia's. I'd put it there myself, figuring I'd earned a spot at the table after all the work I'd done. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, and rubbed my face with both hands. "Optics," I repeated, tasting the word. It sounded fake, like something a politician would say. "What does that even mean, Tal? I'm paying for this thing. I've been planning it with you for months. And now I'm not invited." My voice stayed calm, but inside, my chest felt tight, like someone had reached in and squeezed. "She's not saying you're not invited," Talia said quickly, too quickly. "It's just the invites. The formal part. You're still part of the weekend, okay? It's just Mom's thing." I could hear the plea in her voice, the way she wanted me to let it go. She didn't want to fight, not with me, not with her mom. And me? I didn't want one either. Not yet. I looked at the screen again, and my name sitting there like it belonged. Then I clicked it, highlighted it, hit delete. The box went blank, and the chart shifted, closing the gap where I'd been. Like I'd never existed. "Okay," I said, my voice flat. "If that's what she wants." Talia let out a little breath, relieved. "Thanks, babe," she said. "You're the best. I'll see you tonight, all right?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah," I muttered. "See you." The call ended, and the kitchen went quiet again. Too quiet. I sat there, staring at the empty space where my name used to be. It wasn't just a name. It was me, my effort, my place in this family I'd been trying to fit into for years. And now it was gone, wiped out because of optics. I stood up, pushing the chair back harder than I meant to. The scrape of it against the floor sounded loud in the stillness. I walked to the sink, dumped my cold coffee down the drain, and watched the brown liquid swirl away. My hands gripped the edge of the counter, and I stood there for a long time, just breathing. Talia's words kept playing in my head. It's not a big deal. But it was. It was a big deal to me. I'd spent weeks on this party. Months, really, if you counted all the late-night talks with Talia about what Loretta would like, all the calls to vendors, all the checks I'd written. And now I wasn't even good enough to be on the list. I went back to the table, closed the laptop, and shoved it aside. My stomach churned, but my face stayed calm. I didn't yell. I didn't call Talia back to argue. I didn't even text Loretta to ask why. I just sat there, letting it sink in. They didn't want me there, not really. I was useful, sure. I was the wallet, the planner, the guy who made it all work. But when it came to sitting at the table, to being part of the picture, I didn't fit. I smiled to myself, a small, bitter thing. Fine, I thought. If that's how it is, that's how it is. I nodded, like I was agreeing with someone in the room. But inside, something broke, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet little snap. And I knew, even then, that this wasn't over. The next morning, I woke up early. Too early. The house was still dark, and Talia was snoring softly beside me, her hair spilled across the pillow. I didn't want to wake her, not because I was being considerate, but because I didn't want to talk. My head was still buzzing from yesterday, from that phone call, from the way my name got scrubbed off Loretta's precious party invites like it was nothing. I rolled out of bed, pulled on a hoodie, and grabbed my keys. I needed air. I needed to move. Sitting still felt like letting it all fester, and I wasn't ready to let that happen. Not yet. I drove to the coffee shop down the street, the one with the cracked leather chairs and the barista who never smiled. It was my spot, somewhere I could think without Talia's voice or Loretta's shadow hanging over me. I ordered a black coffee, sat by the window, and pulled out my phone. The email was waiting for me, just like I knew it would be. Talia had forwarded it last night after I'd gone quiet. Here's the finalized guest list, babe. Looks good, right? I hadn't opened it then. I couldn't. But now, with the morning light creeping in and the steam rising off my cup, I tapped the screen and watched it load. There it was. Page after page of names. Loretta's Bridge Club ladies, Edith, Marjorie, that loud one, Carol. Her cousins from Charleston. Her old high school sweetheart, Roger, who still sent her Christmas cards every year even though he'd been married to someone else for decades. Talia's brother Jared, his wife Mara, their 2 kids. Everyone Loretta ever bragged about. Everyone she wanted to show off to. I scrolled through it, my thumb moving slow, looking for one name. Mine. But it wasn't there. Not on the first page. Not on the second. Not anywhere. I leaned back in the chair, the leather creaking under me, and took a sip of coffee. It burned my tongue, but I didn't care. I just stared at the screen, letting the truth settle in. I texted Talia. Couldn't help it. Just saw the guest list. I'm not on it. Simple. No yelling, no accusations, just the facts. My phone buzzed a minute later. You're still part of the weekend, babe, she wrote back. Just not the dinner. It's more family-focused. Mom's call. I read it twice, then set the phone face down on the table. Family-focused. That word hit me like a punch, quiet but hard. I wasn't family? After 10 years with Talia, after all the holidays I'd hosted, all the bills I'd paid, all the times I'd fixed Loretta's leaky sink or driven her to the airport, I wasn't family? I laughed under my breath, a sharp, dry sound that made the guy at the next table glance over. I didn't care. Let him look. I finished my coffee, the bitterness matching the taste in my mouth, and drove home. Talia was up by then, standing in the kitchen in her pajamas, pouring cereal into a bowl. She looked at me when I walked in, her eyes soft but careful, like she was waiting for me to explode. You okay? She asked, stirring her spoon through the milk. I shrugged, dropping my keys on the counter. Yeah, I said. Just saw the list. Wanted to check. She nodded, quick, like she'd rehearsed this. It's not about you, you know. Mom just wanted it to be her people. You're still helping, still there for the setup. It's fine, right? Her voice was light, too light, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I didn't answer right away. I walked to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and twisted the cap off. The cold felt good against my hand, something solid to hold on to. Her people, I said finally, keeping my tone even. Guess I'm not one of them. Talia frowned, setting her bowl down. Don't do that, she said. You know that's not what I meant. You're my husband. You're part of this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the way her shoulders tensed, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes for too long. She didn't believe it either. Not really. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the fan spinning slow circles above me. Talia was out cold again, her breathing steady, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I kept thinking about all of it. Every Christmas I'd spent hauling Loretta's tree out of the attic. Every Easter brunch I'd cooked for her whole crew. Every time I'd written a check for something she couldn't afford. I'd been the one holding it together, making it work. And now? Now I was just the guy who wasn't good enough to sit at the table. Not family-focused enough, whatever that meant. I got up, careful not to wake Talia, and went to the living room. The guest list was still open on my laptop. I'd left it there after dinner. I sat on the couch, the glow of the screen lighting up the dark, and scrolled through it again. Every name felt like a little cut, a reminder of where I didn't belong. I didn't fight it. I didn't call Loretta and demand answers. I didn't even wake Talia to argue. I just watched, quiet, as the reality sank in deeper. They'd erased me, not just from the list, but from the story they wanted to tell. And I let them. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and stared into the dark. I wasn't mad yet. Not loud mad, anyway. But something was building, slow and steady, and I could feel it. I woke up that Saturday with a knot in my stomach, the kind that sits there heavy and won't let go. It was the weekend before Loretta's big party, and I'd promised to drive down to her place in Savannah to help set things up. Talia was still asleep, her face buried in the pillow, so I slipped out of bed quiet, grabbed my duffel bag, and headed to the truck. The drive was 3 hours, plenty of time to think, too much time. Really. The highway stretched out in front of me, all flat and gray, and I kept the radio off. I didn't want music. I wanted to hear my own head, even if it was a mess. My name wasn't on the guest list. I wasn't part of the dinner. But here I was, still playing my part, still showing up. Savannah hit me with that humid air as soon as I stepped out of the truck. Loretta's house sat at the end of a quiet street, big, old, with a wraparound porch and 2 mini windows. I parked in the driveway, grabbed the boxes of decorations from the back, and walked up the steps. The front door swung open before I could knock, and there she was, Loretta, all fake smiles and perfume, her hair pinned up like she was already practicing for the party. "Oh, you made it," she said, her voice dripping with that sugar and arsenic mix she'd perfected. "Come on in, sweetheart. We've been waiting." Sweetheart. Not my name. I nodded, hefted the boxes higher, and followed her inside. The house was buzzing already. Talia's sister-in-law Mara was there, perched on the couch with a glass of iced tea, smirking at me like she always did. Jared, her husband, was nowhere in sight, probably off golfing or something useless. I set the boxes down in the living room, the thud of them hitting the floor louder than I meant it to be. "Where do you want these?" I asked, wiping my hands on my jeans. Loretta waved a hand, vague as ever. "Oh, just drop them there for now," she said. "Be careful with the centerpieces, sweetheart. They're delicate." There it was again, sweetheart. Like I didn't have a name worth saying. I got to work anyway. Unpacked the boxes, hauled tables from the garage, strung lights along the porch railing. The whole time, Loretta floated around, giving orders like she was directing a play. "No, not there. Over by the steps," she'd say, or "mind the paint, it's fresh." Mara didn't lift a finger, just sat there, scrolling her phone, throwing out little comments like, "Wow, you're strong," with that smug edge that made my jaw tighten. I didn't say much. Just kept moving, kept doing what they asked. It's what I always did, showed up, fixed things, made it work. But every time Loretta called me sweetheart, or Mara smirked, that knot in my stomach grew. By dinner, I was sweaty and tired, my shirt sticking to my back. We sat around Loretta's big oak table, me, her, Mara, and Talia, who'd driven down separately that afternoon. The food was good, shrimp and grits, cornbread, the kind of stuff that usually made me feel at home. But tonight, it didn't. Loretta was in full hostess mode, her voice loud and bright, talking about the party like it was her masterpiece. "Jared really stepped up this time," she said, cutting into her cornbread with a little smile. "He's been such a help with everything." I stopped chewing, looked at her. Jared hadn't done a damn thing. I'd booked the venue. I'd paid the deposits. I'd just spent 6 hours lugging her stuff around. But Jared got the praise. Talia caught my eye across the table, her fork hovering over her plate. She gave me a small, tight smile, like she knew what I was thinking. I didn't smile back. "Yeah, Jared's great," I said, my voice flat, pushing a shrimp around my plate. Loretta didn't even blink, just kept going. "He's always been my rock," she said. "Family, you know? You can count on family." That word again, family. I set my fork down, slow and careful, and leaned back in my chair. Mara piped up then, her voice sharp. "Good thing he's around to keep it all together," she said, glancing at me like I was some kind of joke. I didn't bite, just nodded, my face blank. After dinner, I cleared the table, habit, I guess. Loretta didn't thank me, just patted my arm as she walked by and said, "You're a dear." Not my name, not even close. I stood at the sink, scrubbing plates, the hot water stinging my hands. Talia came up behind me, her voice low. "You're quiet tonight," she said. I didn't turn around. "Just tired," I lied, rinsing a glass and setting it on the rack. She didn't push it, kissed my shoulder, and went back to the living room. I stayed there, staring at the suds swirling down the drain, listening to Loretta's laugh echo through the house. I was a delivery man, a worker, a shadow. They didn't say my name because I didn't matter, not the way Jared did, not the way anyone on that guest list did. I dried my hands, slow, and looked out the window at the dark yard. I smiled to myself. Not a happy smile, just one that kept me from breaking something. I'd keep going, keep helping, because that's who I was. But inside, that knot wasn't just heavy anymore. It was starting to burn. That night in Savannah, after dinner, I couldn't sit still. The house was too warm, too full of Loretta's voice and Mara's smirks, and my head felt like it was buzzing with static. I'd scrubbed the dishes until my hands were raw, but it didn't help. Talia was on the couch with her mom, flipping through some old photo album, laughing about things I wasn't part of. I didn't belong in that moment, didn't belong in most of their moments. I was starting to see. So I grabbed a beer from the fridge, muttered something about needing air, and slipped out to the porch. The screen door creaked shut behind me, and for a second, it was just me and the crickets, the humid night pressing in close. I didn't stay out there long. The beer was cold, but it didn't settle me. My legs itched to move, so I went back inside, figuring I'd head to the guest room and crash early. The living room was empty now. Talia and Loretta must have gone upstairs. I set my empty bottle on the counter and started down the hall, my boots quiet on the hardwood. That's when I heard it. My name, low and sharp, coming from the kitchen. I stopped, my hand resting on the wall, and listened. Loretta's voice cut through the air first. "He's just heavy," she said, like she was picking her words careful but didn't care who heard. Emotionally, always brooding, doesn't mix well. My chest went tight, like someone had sucked the air out of me. I didn't move, just stood there, frozen, one foot still half lifted off the floor. Mara's voice came next, quick and mean. "I told Talia to keep him out of the party," she said. "No one wants a storm cloud at a birthday." A storm cloud. That's what I was to them. I could picture them in there. Loretta at the table with her tea, Mara leaning in, her eyes glinting like she'd won something. My stomach dropped, heavy and sick, and I pressed my back against the wall, out of sight. I didn't want them to know I was there. Didn't want to give them the satisfaction. I waited, barely breathing, as their voices kept going. "It's better this way," Loretta said, softer now, like she was convincing herself. "The party's supposed to be light, happy. He'd just drag it down. Drag it down. Me. The guy who'd paid for every damn thing, who'd hauled their boxes, who'd made sure their light, happy night could even happen." My hands curled into fists, slow and tight, but I didn't make a sound. Mara laughed, a short, sharp bark. "Talia should have listened sooner," she said. "He's always been like this. Too quiet. Too much. Too much." I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and stared at the floor. The hallway felt smaller, the walls closer, like they were pressing in on me. I could have walked in, could have pushed the door open, looked them dead in the eye, and asked what the hell they meant. Could have told them I heard every word, that I wasn't some shadow they could kick around. But I didn't. My feet stayed planted, my mouth stayed shut. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't trust what I'd say, or maybe because I already knew it wouldn't change a thing. They'd made up their minds about me a long time ago. I was the outsider, the extra, the one who didn't fit their pretty little picture. And hearing it out loud just made it real. I turned, slow, and walked back down the hall. My boots didn't make a sound this time. I was careful about that. I climbed the stairs, each step heavy, and slipped into the guest room. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood there in the dark, my back against it, just breathing. The room smelled like old wood and lavender, Loretta's touch, probably. I crossed to the bed, sank down on the edge, and stared at the ceiling. The fan was off, but I could see its blades in the dim light from the window, still and useless. Like me, I thought, and hated myself for it. My mind wouldn't stop. Heavy, brooding, storm cloud. The words looped, sharp and loud, cutting deeper every time. I'd spent years trying to be part of this family, fixing things, paying for things, showing up when they needed me. I'd rebuilt half this house after that storm 3 summers back. New shingles, new gutters, all on my dime. I'd driven Loretta to doctor's appointments when her car broke down. I'd stayed quiet when they laughed at my job, my clothes, my way of doing things. And this was what they thought of me. Not family, not even a person, just a weight they didn't want to carry. I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and started typing. Venue. CA. All the stuff I'd booked, all the stuff I'd paid for. My business account tied it together, every contract, every deposit. Refundable, most of it, if I canceled early enough. I didn't know why I was writing it down, didn't know what I was planning. But seeing it there, black and white, made my hands stop shaking. I hit save, set the phone on the nightstand, and lay back on the bed. The ceiling stared down at me, blank and cold, and I wondered when I'd turned into this guy they didn't want around. I didn't yell, didn't storm out. Just lay there, quiet, letting it burn. The next weekend rolled around fast, and I was back in the truck, heading to Savannah again. The road felt familiar now, too familiar, like I'd worn a groove into it with all these trips for Loretta's party. My hands gripped the wheel tight, knuckles white against the leather, and I kept my eyes straight ahead. I hadn't slept much since that night I overheard her and Mara in the kitchen. Their words, heavy, brooding, storm cloud, stuck to me like damp clothes, weighing me down every time I thought about them. But I didn't say anything. Didn't tell Talia I'd heard. Didn't call Loretta out. I just packed my bag and went back, because that's what I did. I showed up. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked different. Busier. Cars lined the street, and people were already milling around the yard, delivery guys, neighbors, some of Loretta's friends dropping off chairs. I parked, grabbed my toolbox from the back, and stepped out into the thick air. Loretta was on the porch, dressed up like she was hosting a gala, already pearls around her neck, her hair swept up, barking orders at a kid carrying a stack of napkins. She saw me and waved, her smile big and bright. "There you are, sweetheart," she called, like nothing had changed. "We're in full swing now. Come help, will you?" Sweetheart again. I nodded, slung the toolbox over my shoulder, and walked up the steps. Inside, it was chaos. Boxes everywhere, tables half set, people tripping over each other. I got to work, fixing a wobbly chair, hanging banners, moving stuff where Loretta pointed. She was everywhere, her voice cutting through the noise like a whip. "No, not there, by the window," she'd say, "or careful with that. It's expensive." I kept my head down, my hands busy, but I started noticing things. The linens on the tables, they weren't the ones I'd picked. Crisp white instead of the soft blue I'd ordered. The centerpieces were different too, tall glass vases with lilies, not the low arrangements I'd signed off on. I stopped, a hammer still in my hand, and looked around. None of it matched what I'd planned. I found Talia in the dining room, folding napkins with Mara. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes tired but warm. "Hey," she said, brushing her hair back. "You're a lifesaver, you know that?" I didn't smile. Just set the hammer down and leaned against the table. "What's with the changes?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "The linens, the flowers, none of this is what we booked." Talia blinked, like she hadn't expected the question. "Oh," she said, shrugging. "Mom made a few adjustments. You were busy, so she handled it." "Busy?" I stared at her, my jaw tight. "I wasn't busy," I said. "I picked all that stuff. Paid for it." "When did she decide to change it?" Talia glanced at Mara, who didn't even look up, just kept folding, her lips twitching like she was hiding a smirk. "It's not a big deal," Talia said, her voice soft, pleading. "Mom just wanted it her way. You know how she is." I didn't know. That was the problem. I nodded, slow, and picked up the hammer again. "Right," I said. "Her way." I walked out before she could say more, my boots heavy on the floor. I didn't want to hear it, didn't want her excuses, didn't want Mara's quiet gloating. I went back to work, hammering nails into a frame for the photo backdrop, each swing harder than the last. By afternoon, the place was coming together. The yard was full of tables, the porch draped in lights, everything polished and perfect. Loretta swept through like a queen, checking every detail, praising everyone but me. "Mara, those napkins are darling," she said. Or, "Oh, the caterer's early. Thank goodness." I was invisible unless she needed something moved. I kept going, kept falling in line, because stopping would mean thinking, and I wasn't ready for that. But then it happened. She caught me by the garage, where I was stacking extra chairs. Her heels clicked on the pavement as she walked over, her eyes sharp behind that fake smile. "You've been a big help, darling," she said, her voice smooth. Darling this time, not sweetheart, but still not my name. I wiped sweat off my forehead and looked at her. "Glad to hear it," I said, keeping it short. She tilted her head, studying me like I was a puzzle she didn't care to solve. "You've never really belonged here, you know," she said, casual, like she was commenting on the weather. "This is my family's event. You're just Talia's +1. The words hit me slow, sinking in deep. I stood there, a chair still in my hands, and felt that burn from last week flare up hot and bright. I didn't yell, didn't drop the chair and storm off. I just looked at her, right in the eye, and smiled. Okay, I said, my voice steady. She blinked, like she'd expected more, then turned and clicked away, back to her kingdom. I set the chair down, slow and careful, and stood there in the shadow of the garage. That was it. The last straw. Not a big fight, not a scene, just a quiet little cut that severed something inside me. I nodded to myself, like I was agreeing with her. Okay, if that's how she saw it, fine. I'd keep smiling, keep nodding. But something had shifted, and I wasn't going back. I drove back to Atlanta the next morning, the truck rumbling under me as the highway stretched out long and empty. My hands stayed steady on the wheel, but inside, I was a mess. Loretta's words still echoing in my head, sharp and cold. You've never really belonged here. Talia's +1. I didn't blast the radio to drown it out. Didn't call Talia to talk it over. I just drove, the hum of the engine filling the silence, letting it all settle into me like wet cement. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the sun was high, and my chest felt heavy but calm. I knew what I had to do. Not out of anger. Not yet. But out of something quieter, something I couldn't name. The house was empty when I walked in. Talia had stayed in Savannah to finish party stuff with her mom, so it was just me, the ticking clock, and a pile of mail on the counter. I dropped my keys next to it, kicked off my boots, and went straight to the office. My laptop sat on the desk, a thin layer of dust on the lid from all the weekends I'd been gone. I opened it, the screen flickering to life, and pulled up the planning dashboard I'd built months ago. It was all there, every piece of Loretta's big day, laid out in neat little rows. Savannah Hall, paid in full. Everglow Catering, paid in full. Sweet Bloom Florals. The Jazz Quartet. Valet. Photographer. My name was on every contract, my company logo stamped in the corner, my credit card tied to every payment. I'd built this thing from the ground up, and now it was time to take it apart. I started with the venue. Savannah Hall's contact was a guy named Mike, gruff voice, straight talker. I'd dealt with him before. I found his email, typed out a quick message. Hey Mike, need to cancel the booking for next weekend. Something came up. Let me know about the refund. Short, polite, no details. I hit send and moved on. Catering was next. Everglow had a cancellation clause, 75% back if I pulled out a week early. I wrote them too. Hi. Canceling the order for the 70th birthday event. Please process the refund. Thanks. My fingers moved fast, steady, like I was crossing off a grocery list. Florist, quartet, valet, each one got the same treatment. Calm, professional, no fuss. It took me all day. The sun dipped low, painting the room orange, and I kept going. Phone calls now. Some vendors wanted to hear my voice, confirm it was me. Yeah, it's me. I'd say, leaning back in my chair. Just need to cancel. Things changed. They didn't push. Why would they? I was the guy on the invoice, the one who'd signed the checks. One lady from the florist asked if everything was okay, her voice soft like she cared. Yeah. I lied, twirling a pen between my fingers. Just a scheduling thing. She didn't need to know. None of them did. By the time I hung up the last call, it was dark outside, and the dashboard was empty. Every thread I'd woven into that party gone. Unspooled like it had never been there. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, and stared at the screen. The silence in the house felt different now. Not heavy, not suffocating, just mine. I'd spent months tying myself to that event. Every deposit, every phone call, every late night arguing with Talia about table settings. It was my work, my money, my time. And Loretta had looked me in the eye and said I didn't belong. Fine, I thought. If I didn't belong, neither did this party. I didn't feel good about it. Not exactly. No big rush of victory, no fist pump. Just a quiet release, like letting go of a breath I'd been holding too long. I stood up, stretched my arms over my head, and walked to the kitchen. The fridge hummed soft, and I grabbed a beer, popping the cap off with my thumb. The first sip was cold, sharp, and I leaned against the counter, staring at the wall. My phone sat on the table, dark and quiet. No calls yet. No texts. They didn't know, not Talia, not Loretta, not any of them. But they would. Soon enough, the dominoes I'd knocked over would hit them, and I'd be here, waiting. I took another sip, slow, and let that thought sit with me. I wasn't hiding, wasn't running. I'd done it clean, by the book, and I'd stand by it. The beer was half gone when I started thinking about why. Not the big why, not the years of feeling like an outsider, but the small one, the one that got me moving today. It was her voice in my head, calling me darling, telling me I was just Talia's tag-along. It was Mara's laugh, cutting me down like I was nothing. It was every time I'd smiled and nodded while they walked over me. I'd kept falling in line, kept playing the part, but that was over now. I'd pulled the plug, not loud, not messy, just done. And it felt right. I finished the beer, set the bottle in the sink, and went back to the office. The laptop was still open, the empty dashboard glowing in the dark. I closed it, the click loud in the quiet, and stood there for a minute, just breathing. The party was gone. Every piece of it, unraveled in a day. The silence wasn't peaceful, not yet, but it was mine. I owned it. And that was enough for now. Tuesday morning hit me like a brick. I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into my mug, when my phone started buzzing on the counter. I'd been waiting for it, knew it was coming after I'd pulled the plug on Loretta's party, but it still made my stomach twist. The screen lit up with Talia's name. I took a slow sip of coffee, the heat burning my tongue, and let it ring twice before I picked up. Hey, I said, keeping my voice flat, like I didn't know what was coming. She didn't waste time. Did you forget to confirm something? She asked, her tone sharp but confused. The florist just called me. Said the delivery's off. What's going on? I leaned against the counter, staring at the steam rising off my mug. I didn't forget, I said. I canceled it. There was a pause, long and heavy, like she was trying to figure out if I was joking. What? She said finally, her voice rising. You canceled the flowers? Why would you do that? I set the mug down, slow, and rubbed my hand over my face. Not just the flowers, I said. All of it. Venue, catering, everything. It's done. Another silence, this one thicker, like the air before a storm. You're kidding, she said, but it wasn't a question. Tell me you're kidding. I didn't say anything, just let her hear the quiet on my end. She sucked in a breath. I don't understand. Why would you hold on? Mom's calling. I'll call you back. The line went dead, and I stood there, the phone warm in my hand, waiting for the next hit. It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again, this time, Loretta. I answered on the first ring, bracing myself. What the hell did you do? She snapped. No hello. No fake sweetness. Her voice was pure fire, loud enough to make me pull the phone back an inch. I don't care what legal nonsense you're hiding behind, fix it. I pictured her in Savannah, pacing her kitchen, her pearls bouncing against her chest. It's already fixed, I said, calm, like I was talking about the weather. Canceled everything yesterday. Refunds are processing. She sputtered, actually sputtered, like she couldn't get the words out fast enough. You little, do you have any idea what you've done? This is my birthday. My family. You don't get to ruin it because you're in a mood. I didn't flinch. Not in a mood, I said. Just done. I hung up before she could scream again, my thumb steady on the button. The calls kept coming after that, Talia again, then Jared, then a couple cousins I barely knew. I didn't pick up. Let them go to voicemail, let them pile up. I turned the phone face down and walked out to the balcony instead. The air was cool for once, a breeze cutting through the Atlanta heat, and I grabbed the watering can from the corner. My plants were looking rough, droopy leaves, dry soil. I'd been gone too much, chasing Loretta's party, and they'd paid for it. I filled the can at the sink, came back, and started pouring, slow and careful, watching the water soak in. It felt good, simple, something I could control, something that didn't talk back. My phone buzzed again, this time a text. I glanced over. Some cousin had posted on social media. Anyone know what happened to Loretta's birthday? Whole event vanished. I didn't open it. Didn't reply. Just kept watering, moving from the basil to the tomatoes, letting the dirt darken under my hands. The notifications kept coming, pings and chimes, a little chorus of panic, but I didn't look. They'd figure it out soon enough. The venue was gone. The food, the flowers, the music, all of it. I'd unraveled their big day in 24 hours, and now they were scrambling. I didn't feel like a hero. Didn't feel smug. Just lighter, like I dropped a bag of bricks I'd been hauling around for years. Talia called again that afternoon. I picked up this time, sitting on the balcony with my feet up on the railing. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice softer now, hurt more than mad. You just blew it all up. Mom's a wreck. I tipped my head back, staring at the sky, gray clouds rolling in slow. She told me I didn't belong, I said. Said I was just your plus one. I figured if I don't belong, my money doesn't either. Talia went quiet, and I could hear her breathing, fast and uneven. She didn't mean it like that, she said finally. You know how she is. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, I said. I know how she is. That's why I did it. She didn't argue, just sighed, long and tired. We'll talk when I get home, she said, and hung up. I stayed out there till dark, the air cooling around me, the plants perked up from the water. The phone kept buzzing, more texts, more posts, more voicemails I didn't check. Loretta's perfect party was ash now, and they were all feeling it. I didn't care about their blame. Didn't care about the mess. I'd carried their weight too long, smiled through it, nodded through it, and this was me letting go. Not loud, not proud, just done. The breeze picked up, rustling the leaves, and I closed my eyes. It wasn't triumph. It was release. The days after the detonation were strange, quiet in some ways, loud in others. I stayed off my phone mostly, letting the calls and texts stack up like unread mail. Talia came home Wednesday night, her face tight and her suitcase thumping against the floor as she dropped it by the door. She didn't say much, just hey, and a quick nod before heading to the shower. I didn't push her. Didn't ask about Savannah or Loretta or the fallout. I knew it was coming, though. You don't cancel a whole party, especially one like that, without the story twisting itself into knots. And sure enough, by Thursday, it started spinning. I was at the kitchen table, eating a bowl of cereal, when I finally caved and checked my phone. The screen was a mess, missed calls, voicemails, texts, notifications from social media I didn't even use much. I scrolled through it slow, spoon halfway to my mouth, letting the words sink in. Loretta had gone first, posting on her Facebook. Some people can't handle not being the center of attention. Ruined my 70th out of jealousy. Jealousy. I snorted, the sound loud in the empty kitchen, and set the spoon down. She'd painted me as the bad guy, petty, spiteful, some jealous outsider who couldn't stand her spotlight. It wasn't true, but it didn't surprise me. That's how she worked, turned everything into her story, her victory. Talia came downstairs then, her hair wet, dressed in sweatpants and a loose shirt. She saw me on my phone and paused, leaning against the counter. You see it? She asked, her voice low, like she didn't want to start something. I nodded, tilting the screen so she could see Loretta's post. Yeah, I said. Jealousy, huh? That's her take. Talia crossed her arms, looking at the floor. She's upset, she said. You know how she gets. She's just saying stuff. I leaned back in my chair, the wood creaking under me. She's not wrong about one thing, I said. I did ruin it, but not because I'm jealous. Because I'm tired. Talia didn't answer. Just chewed her lip and grabbed a glass of water. The calls kept coming after that. Jared left a voicemail, his voice rough and loud. You're unstable, man. Pulling this crap? You've lost it. I played it on speaker while I washed my bowl, the words bouncing off the sink. Unstable. I didn't feel unstable. I felt steady, steadier than I had in years. Talia tried to smooth it over, hovering nearby as I dried my hands. He's just mad, she said. Give it time. They'll calm down. I looked at her, towel still in my grip. They can be mad, I said. Doesn't change what I did. She frowned, like she wanted to argue, but didn't. You're going through something, she said instead, soft, like she was testing the water. I get it. I didn't reply, just hung the towel up and walked away. By Friday, the narrative was everywhere. Cousins posted vague updates, family drama. Y'all, pray for us. And Loretta's Bridge Club ladies chimed in with comments like, such a shame, and he never seemed right. I didn't fight it. Didn't post my side. Didn't call anyone to explain. What was there to say? They wouldn't get it. Wouldn't see the years of me carrying their weight, smiling while they pushed me out. I'd stopped playing the role they'd shoved me into, the quiet helper, the guy who paid and fixed and never complained. And now they were mad because the stage was empty. I went to work that day, my real work, not Loretta's errands. The office was quiet, just the hum of the AC and the clack of keyboards. My assistant, Jen, asked how the party went, her eyebrows up like she expected a fun story. Didn't happen, I said, flipping through invoices. She blinked. What? Why not? I shrugged, keeping it simple. Canceled it. She waited for more, but I didn't give it, just smiled and turned back to my desk. Let them wonder. Let them all wonder. The truth was mine, small and sharp, and I didn't need to shout it. The vendors were good about it. Emails trickled in, refunds processed, deposits returned, polite notes saying sorry it didn't work out. I read them over coffee that night, Talia Wuck. Everything I'd paid for was coming back, clean and legal. The gossip, though, that was loud. Text from old friends I hadn't seen in years. Heard you torched your mother-in-law's party. What's up? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. They'd hear Loretta's version soon enough, and that was fine. I wasn't here to win a crowd. I sat on the balcony later, a beer in my hand, the city lights blinking below. Talia came out, wrapped in a blanket, and sat next to me. They're saying a lot, she said, her voice quiet. I told them you're not a bad guy. I took a sip, the bottle cold against my lips. Don't care what they say, I said. I stopped carrying it. That's all. She nodded, slow, like she was trying to understand. It's still a mess, she said. But okay. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat there, the noise of their words fading into the night. I didn't move. Didn't need to. For the first time in years, I felt still, right where I was. Weeks passed slow after the party imploded, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something else to break. The calls died down, the text trickled to nothing, and the social media storm faded into background noise. I kept busy. Work, the gym, fixing the leaky faucet in the kitchen I'd been ignoring for months. Talia was around, but not really. She'd come home from Savannah and settled into a quiet routine, her suitcase still half unpacked by the door. We didn't talk much about the party, about her mom, about anything. She'd cook dinner, I'd wash the dishes, and we'd watch TV like nothing had happened. But something had. I could feel it in the air, thick and unspoken, every time we brushed past each other. It was a Thursday when the letter came. I'd just gotten home from work, my tie loose around my neck, when I saw it on the counter, thick cream envelope, Loretta's fancy handwriting swirling across the front. My name in black ink, no address, just hand-delivered, probably by Talia. I picked it up, the paper smooth and heavy in my hands, and stood there for a minute, turning it over. Part of me wanted to toss it straight into the trash, unopened, unread, gone. But I didn't. I slid my thumb under the flap, tore it open, and pulled out a single sheet. 6 lines, written in her sharp, perfect cursive. I read it slow, my jaw tight, letting each word hit me like a stone. I don't understand why you felt the need to ruin everything, it started. You embarrassed the family. You hurt Talia. But you're still part of this family. For now. That was it. No sorry, no softening, just cold blame and a half-hearted nod, like she was doing me a favor by keeping me around. I stood there, the letter dangling from my fingers, and let out a slow breath. The kitchen was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the faint drip of that faucet I'd fixed. I read it again, slower this time, waiting for something to shift inside me. Anger, maybe, or hurt, but nothing came. Just a dull, steady calm, like I'd already known this was how she'd play it. I folded the paper once, crisp and neat, and walked to the desk in the living room. The drawer slid open with a soft scrape, and I dropped the letter inside, right next to the utility bills and a stack of old receipts. It didn't deserve more than that. No frame, no special place, just another piece of paper to forget about. I closed the drawer, the click loud in the stillness, and leaned back against the couch. Talia wasn't home yet. She texted something about grabbing groceries, so it was just me and the weight of those 6 lines. I didn't feel like fighting them. Didn't feel like proving her wrong. She could think what she wanted. I was past caring. When Talia got back, her arms full of bags, I helped her unload. Milk, bread, a carton of eggs. She didn't mention the letter, but I saw her eyes flick to the counter where it had been, like she was checking if I'd seen it. You okay? She asked, casual, as she shoved a jar of sauce into the pantry. I nodded, cracking open a beer from the fridge. Yeah, I said. Got the mail. Her hands paused on a bag of apples, just for a second, then kept moving. Oh, she said, light, like it was nothing. Good. That was it. No questions, no apologies from her either. We finished putting stuff away, and she went upstairs to change. I stayed in the kitchen, sipping my beer, staring at the spot where the letter had sat. The guest room became her spot that night. She didn't say she was moving in there, just grabbed a pillow and her blanket after dinner and said, I'll sleep here for a bit. Need some space. I didn't argue. Didn't ask why. Okay, I said, and watched her go. The door clicked shut, and the house felt bigger, emptier. I sat on the couch, the TV flickering with some show I wasn't really watching, and let the silence settle in. We'd stopped talking about the party weeks ago, stopped talking about much at all. It wasn't a fight, not loud or messy, just a slow drift, like 2 boats pulling away from the same dock. I went to bed alone, the sheets cold on her side, and lay there, staring at the ceiling. The fan spun lazy circles above me, and I thought about that letter, not the words, but the way it felt. Cold. Final. Like Loretta was drawing a line, daring me to cross it. But I didn't want to. I didn't need her forgiveness, didn't need her family tag tacked on to me for now. I'd canceled the party because I was done bending, done begging for a place they'd never give me. And Talia? She was stuck in the middle, not picking a side, just floating there, quiet. I didn't blame her, not yet, but I felt the gap growing. The next morning, I made coffee for one. Talia came down late, her hair messy, and grabbed a mug without looking at me. We moved around each other like strangers, polite, careful, saying nothing that mattered. The letter stayed in the drawer, untouched, and the days kept rolling by. We didn't talk about it. Didn't talk about anything. Just let the silence build, brick by brick, until it was all we had left. A month later, I stood in the middle of a new loft across town, my hands on my hips, breathing in the smell of fresh paint and empty space. It was mine, signed the lease that morning, a stack of papers still warm from the printer sitting on the bare counter. The place wasn't big, just one bedroom, a small kitchen, a living area with tall windows letting in the gray March light. But it was enough. I brought what mattered. My guitars, leaning against the wall like old friends, my coffee machine, humming on the counter, and one box of books, still taped shut by the door. The rest stayed behind, furniture, dishes, all the stuff tangled up in the life I'd walked away from. This was a clean start, and I wanted it to feel that way. The move happened fast. After Talia took the guest room, things didn't snap back. We didn't fight, didn't yell or throw things, just drifted further apart, like we'd both given up on pulling the pieces together. One night, over takeout, I told her I was looking for a place. She nodded, poking at her fried rice with a plastic fork. "If that's what you need," she said, her voice flat, like she'd already checked out. It wasn't a breakup, not official, not yet, but it was close enough. I found the loft online a week later, toured it with the landlord, and put down the deposit. She didn't ask to come along. Didn't ask much at all. When I packed, she watched from the doorway, arms crossed, silent. I carried the last box in that afternoon, my boots scuffing the hardwood as I set it next to the guitars. The echo bounced off the bare walls, loud and hollow, and I stood there, letting it fade. No couch yet, no table, just me and the stuff I'd chosen to keep. I walked to the window, pushed it open, and let the city noise roll in, car horns, a distant siren, the low rumble of life outside. It wasn't fireworks or a big celebration. It was quieter than that, simpler. Freedom didn't come with a bang. It came with this, an empty room, a cold breeze, and the sound of my own breathing. I plugged in the coffee machine, the red light blinking as it warmed up. While it gurgled, I grabbed one of the guitars, an old acoustic I'd had since college, and sat on the floor, my back against the wall. The strings were dusty, out of tune, but I strummed anyway, tweaking the pegs until the notes settled into something right. I played soft, just messing around, letting the chords fill the space. It had been months since I'd touched it, too busy with work, with Loretta's party, with trying to fit where I didn't belong. Now, with nothing else pulling at me, it felt good. Like stretching after a long drive. The coffee finished brewing, and I poured a mug, the steam curling up in the cool air. I took it to the window, leaned on the sill, and looked out. Atlanta sprawled below, tall buildings, tangled streets, people moving like ants. I'd lived here with Talia for years, but it felt different now, like I was seeing it for the first time. Not her city, not Loretta's, just mine. I sipped the coffee, the bitterness sharp on my tongue, and thought about what I'd left behind. Not just the house, not just her. The role I'd played, peacemaker, planner, the guy who took the hits and kept smiling. I'd canceled that too, not just the party. And it felt right. I didn't miss it, the chaos, the weight, the way they'd looked at me like I was less. Loretta's letter was still in that drawer back at the old place, probably buried under junk mail by now. Talia hadn't called since I left, and I hadn't called her. Maybe we'd talk later, sort out the legal stuff, figure out what came next, but not today. Today was for me. I set the mug down, picked up the guitar again, and played louder this time, the sound bouncing off the walls, filling the emptiness. It wasn't perfect. My fingers were rusty, stumbling over the strings, but it was mine. Night fell slow, the sky turning deep blue outside. I ordered a pizza, ate it straight from the box on the floor, and watched the lights flicker on across the city. My phone stayed quiet. No buzz, no chime, just silence. Peaceful, intentional silence. I'd spent a decade bending, twisting myself to fit their mold, Loretta's rules, Talia's quiet excuses, the family that never wanted me. Canceling the party was the first step, but this loft, this night, was the real break. I wasn't their punching bag anymore. Wasn't their wallet or their fix-it guy. I was just me, and that was enough. I finished the pizza, tossed the box by the door, and lay back on the floor, hands behind my head. The ceiling was blank. No fan, no cracks, just smooth white. I stared at it, letting my mind drift. Was it worth it? Yeah, I thought. Worth every canceled contract, every angry call, every cold look. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to tell me where I stood. I belonged here, to myself, to this quiet, to this life I was building, one chord at a time. I closed my eyes, the guitar resting beside me, and listened to the sound of freedom. It wasn't loud. It was steady, and it was mine.